Shivchui thali thali rozan, mozan hyundatai Musalman.
Namaste and welcome to Gagree of Tales, Abhay. I and everyone
Uh,
watching us will be exhilarated to listen to India's youngest classical music composer of Sufi and folk music ensembles, who has carried forward the legacy of treasuring Indian culture and promoting it globally. So today I would like to ask you a few questions based on this legacy and on one of the most ancient instruments of India, the Santoor.
well, first of all, it's such a pleasure to interact with you. And um, the beauty about Santoor is that it's been an instrument which has been part of the Vedic culture, and then it, gradually from the Shavic culture went into the Sufi culture, and now it's part of the classical music. So I think one of the very few instruments that we have, which are from the ancient times and still are absolutely popular.
So, is there some sort of a recorded history where we can trace your legacy back to?
When it comes to the Sopori family, the Santoor has been in our family for almost like 300 years or more. And it's been one generation after another. We have had master musicians coming and contributing further to the Santoor, to the Shavite music, Sufi music, and of course the classical music. But when we talk about Sopori family with regard to Kashmir, so we have to take into consideration few events that have happened in the history. So like in 1947, when we had the attack on Kashmir, they were, Pakistani soldiers behind the tribals. So the name tribal, attack or the Kabali raid was given just to dilute the action of our neighboring country. Though people really don't know about the history, it's still called Kabali raid, but it's actually, an attack by the soldiers of a country. But irrespective of who attacked, but they ransacked everything in Sopor. They destroyed the properties. They burned down the properties and everything. Our family also had to move that time because they were attacking the people in Sopor,
So, what,
especially Kashmiri Pandits.
so were there any written records of music that were destroyed? And if yes, then how were they passed on?
We had everything, the documents, the bandishes, compositions, everything that we had. And since the family had to leave immediately, so a lot, whatever could have been packed, that was put into, because that time the road from Sopor to Srinagar was not the way to bring out the stuff. So they packed a lot of stuff and they put it into the kind of a boat, huge boats. Uh, and by road they took the people and they were coming to Srinagar. So they reached Srinagar, but the luggage of people, the belongings, that never reached Srinagar because it was looted in between and nothing could reach. It's not just for the Sopori family, it's for everybody who, shifted their stuff. And everything which was in Sopor that time, from our side, that was burned down. So we lost 95% maybe of every document that we had, the musical instruments, and everything was lost that time. Then in 1990, whatever was left when we had to come to Delhi after the exodus in 1990. So my grandfather's place, my Dadaji, his house was occupied by one of the neighbors who had a hotel there. And that resulted in further loss of whatever we had. So whatever was saved in 1947 got destroyed in 1990. We have my great grandfather's setar with us. Setar is a parallel instrument of sitar in Kashmir. So we have that. That's still with my uncle. I have the name of all the 9 generations which are before me. And that's a good part, that we know the names. And whatever little we know from that, we are trying to retrieve.
You follow a culture of Shavic-Sufism, which are two very, very distinct cultures. So how did they come together? Was the form of music the main reason?
14th century in Kashmir, when the Islamic influence came in and the Sufi influence came along with that, that is when the Sufi culture came into Kashmir. So Sufi culture talks about oneness with the Almighty, irrespective of the religion. In fact, at times Sufis attack the religion. And so is the case in Shaivism also. Laleshwari, in one of her writings, what we call as Vak, she says Laleshwari is one of the greatest Shaivite Sufi saints we have had. There must have been more, but since many of the documents of Kashmir history have been destroyed, so we don't know many names, but Laleshwari is one of the very prominent Shaivite saints, and of course, she's acclaimed as one of the top Sufi writers also. So in one of her works, she says, Shivchui theli theli rozan, mozan hundatai musalman, trukai chuk panun pan parzan, soi chai sahiba se zinizan. So what basically it means is that Shivchui theli theli rozan, which is the Shiva resides everywhere, it's omnipresent. And Mozan Hindutai Musalman. So it says, don't fall into this pit of Hinduism and Islam. You have to be one with the God. You have to have that connection with the Almighty. And only when you have that connection with the Almighty, you will realize your own self. And then you will realize this beautiful connection that you have and what who this Almighty is. So in Shaivism, Shiva is not merely, I would say, a god which can be described by a painter through a painting or a shape or something. Shiva is the ultimate energy, and which can only be felt. It cannot be expressed through words or many of the creative arts also. But when it comes to music, because of its, we call music as Naad. And when we talk about Naad, then we are talking about the energy and the connection between the energy. So the spiritualism and the music therapy, everything comes together, and we have Shaivism with us. It's a beautiful philosophy, and that's the history of Santoor. It's been it's a Shaivite instrument. With the influence of Sufism in Kashmir, it became a beautiful part of the Sufi culture as well. And but yeah, many people say that it's a folk instrument, which it is not. It is a very sacred instrument. It has been part of the classical culture. The instrument has 100 strings, so it's this instrument which we have in the Sufi culture right now, in the Sufiana music of Kashmir. And it has 1.5 octaves. So if we start from Sa, so it's Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni Sa, 1 octave, Re Ga Ma Pa. So 1.5 octaves. So all the compositions in Sufiana Mosiki are in 1.5 octaves. Now if we go back, saying that if some people say, okay, fine, it's we can't accept it as an instrument. What was played on this instrument if it's from the Shaiva culture? What was played on this instrument? Then it was devotional music, it was temple music, and especially that music was composed in three notes. So music gradually, when it started, uh, we had tribandi, so we had compositions of three notes. So that three notes is still very much visibly available in many of the religions also. So whether that is Buddhism, whether that is Hinduism, or other religions as well. So da 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 da. So this is tribandi. So it's almost in every religion that we find tribandi. But when we talk about classical music, the santoor that I play, that santoor is called the santoor of Sopori Baj. The Baj means style. So Sopori style of playing santoor, that is something which my father Pandit Bhajan Sopori created. Now Sopori Baj is an absolutely a different, uh, what I would call as a thought process of looking at classical music and santoor. So we have all the technicalities of vocal system, the nuances of vocal system uh, on santoor in Sopori Baj.
How different was the production of wires earlier when they were not factory produced?
So gut strings are basically made from the skin of the, the goat skin, probably the stomach lining of the goat or something. Many of the instruments still have gut strings, like sarangi. So the main string of sarangi is the gut string, and so were the strings in all the instruments. They were all gut strings.
I'm sure that the quality of music would differ with this change.
It just makes it so different. If we use, like we have the bridges, now if that bridge is made of animal bone, normally when we say bone, so it's not the typical bone, it's the horn of the animal. So that sound is absolutely different from what a synthetic or perhaps just a wooden interpretation of that particular thing would be. But the thing is that this became a business in itself. Now, I'll tell you something very interesting, like Santoor. It's called Bhairav Kash, so which basically means the instrument of Bhairava. And Bhairav again gets connected to Shaivism. So for this, the main wood is the wood which is mulberry, which is called as the tree of Bhairav. And the only, reason for which the authorities would allow this tree to be cut was for making the santoor. But gradually, to avoid this, the manufacturers started making instruments. They tried testing various other woods also. And now we have santoor, which is made of a mix of various qualities of wood. But essentially, it was made of mulberry. Shaft of the santoor, that can't be too dead a wood, which is like too hard or too heavy. So they have one particular wood for that, and the sides need to be very strong because it has all the tension of these 100 strings. So they utilize a different wood for that. So I think this is a much better process of trying and seeing whatever best we can do to preserve our nature.
Coming back to Shaivism, how does Santoor take one into a higher abode? Could you talk a little bit about that?
See, Santoor is the only instrument that we have which is part of a yantra, which many people don't even know. Even the Santoor players perhaps don't know all the Santoor players. When we talk about the Shiva and the Shakti, and the Shiva and the Shakti coming together as uh, as the ultimate energy that we have, so we get the designing of the santoor from that. And in the Sri Yantra, It's all triangles, and in between those triangles, if you see, you will find the shape of the santoor. And the bigger the triangle, the bigger the shape of the santoor. And this is something very beautiful, and it in itself proves that this instrument is absolutely something which has a divine sound. It's connected to a divine reason, to a very sacred reason. All instruments are beautiful, but there's something very special about Santoor, that it's connected, deep into our tradition, deep into our roots. And coming down from, this particular uh, area wherein we find Santoor as part of the Sri Yantra, and then the sound of the Santoor, it just elevates the entire system. That deep meditation, uh, the sounds that we hear, one of the sounds is the sound of the bell, and the sound of the Santoor is closest to that sound. And this is the reason that the impact of Santoor on human nervous system is absolutely wonderful. And the saints have loved this instrument like anything. My father tells me that when he was a small kid and he would go and play for the saints, because it's as part of the family tradition that we play for the saints and the sages. Um, the saints would say whatever they achieve in weeks or months of their meditation, the same results they get in few hours when Santoor is being played during their meditation. So that's the kind of impact that this instrument has.
So, from history, can you give us an example of this kind of deep meditation that you're talking about? Has it helped heal anybody from history or from your experience?
Family, uh, my great grandfather and his father, which is my great 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 grandfather. So at during that time, when the local doctors, so which is the Hakims and the Veds, so when they would prescribe their medicines along with that medication, whatever they would give their patients, as part of their treatment, they would write, go to Panditji, whether it was Pandit Shankar Panditji or Pandit Samsar Sopori ji, go to him and ask him to play this particular uh, melody or makam for you. That time they were the only doctors, and part of their therapy, music used to be there. In Kashmir, we have had numerous examples and cases where people have, you know, uh, felt a difference uh, during their illness after listening to Santoor. In fact, a pharmaceutical company with the name Ozone Pharmaceuticals, they released three of my father's albums. I assisted him in one of his albums in those, and they called it Nad Yoga on Santoor. And they didn't send it for sale to music companies. They just distributed it everywhere, to clinics, hospitals, and it was even available in pharmaceutical shops. So, in between the medicines, the shelves, you would find this album sitting out there. And when somebody would ask, they would just give it because the company had said, whosoever asks for the album, just give it. And people have felt a difference. And it's all together. So you can't be a great musician unless you are too much into your own realization, your own introspection of your own self. And only when you do that, it reflects in your music. And the presentation of music changes. And it becomes something very healing, something very beautiful. So a musician also needs to work on his own self and elevate his own self spiritually if he really wants to contribute to the society in this way. I really wanted to work a lot on this sound part, and try to contribute this to our society. It will take me a little while, but I just hope to do this in my lifetime.
Thank you for sharing such fantastic incidents with us, and I'm sure it'll inspire many.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me today.